Okay, okay.
Totally. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wisdom Club podcast. I'm excited to be on live with you today, but I have a special friend and uh, mentor, friend, business partners, and now podcast guest. Andrea Duane is on here with us, and love to talk with her because she's just a wealth of knowledge, and just her entire vibe will be very, very inspiration to all of you guys out there listening. If you don't know Andrea, you will get to know a lot about her and also her area and her expertise in both real estate and business. And let's get started. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Leo. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here and chat with you and your listeners.
I think about you all the time, and I'm like, okay, when am I going to have Andrea Duane on? When am I going to have Andrea Duane on? Because we've known each other for so many years, and I just felt like I know so much, but I want to make it, impactful for people out there to really, really get to know you. And so there was some scheduling and some delays, and for me to kind of just wrap my head around, like, how do I interview one of my best friends, in my inner circle? So thank
Yeah.
you for taking the time. I appreciate you so much. So for people that are out there, if not seen you or known about you, can you give us some, first of all, background on geography, like what part of the world you are in, and then we can talk a little bit more about your business and real estate in general.
Yeah. Thanks, Leo. So, geographically speaking, I am located about 45 minutes east of Sacramento in El Dorado Hills. So, geographically, I'm in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, and I serve the Tri County areas of El Dorado, Sacramento, and Placer counties. So, three very small communities, and with a lot of small cities and towns. We are the foothills, and we have fantastic amenities from being outdoors to just a great community vibe. So a lot of people really tend to migrate to our small town. I've been here over 30 years, and I moved from San Diego to here, and it was like a little cow town back in the day, and now it's grown so much. So people just love to come here.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that a part of our state here in California, and it's kind of a little pocket there. And give us a sense, like what kind of town is it? Specifically, El Dorado Hills. Is it what drives the town? Is it more suburb? And what kind of people would want to consider moving there? Because there's so much movement right now around the country.
Yeah, so we are a kind of a destination market for affordability from a California perspective. While we're still, more expensive than say the high desert, we get a lot of implants from the Bay Area because we're only about an hour, 45 minutes to 2 hours from the Bay Area. So we're a much more affordable market. People come here for the great schools, the family friendly environment, the fact that we have the lakes and wineries and a lot of outdoor activities. So people come here for the lifestyle, for that a little bit more elbow room, and you get a lot more bang for your buck here than you would in the surrounding communities of, say, Napa, Tahoe, and San Francisco.
So kind of the without it being some of those really well-known areas, you get to kind of have like this quiet family life, where everybody knows everybody and are really just growing their family, raising their kids, and all that kind of stuff. So very much a suburb kind of thing, but also accessible, like you said, right? For to Lake Tahoe, to Sacramento, to the Bay Area. How far are you from, say, the Bay Area?
So we're, depending on traffic, we're about an hour and 45 minutes to 3 hours from the Bay Area, all
Mhm.
traffic dependent. But that's why people love to come here is you can be in Tahoe in an hour and a half. You can be in Napa in, a couple hours. You can be in Santa Cruz in 3 hours. So everything's a great weekend or day trip away. And so, we kind of landed on the map. People know Folsom. We're the next town next to
Mhm.
Folsom. So everyone says Folsom Prison. Yes, the Folsom Prison is also a town we serve.
But still, very very family friendly. And so, when you were living in San Diego, what caused you to move to El Dorado or El Dorado Hills?
So yeah, so I was a teenager then, so I really didn't have a say. My parents separated, and that's what brought us up to Northern California. And I've really been here since February of '89. So for a really long time now.
Yeah, well, same thing here in Orange County. Like a lot of the areas here, it was orchards, and we had cows roaming probably up until the late '90s at least, and then
Mhm.
sheep's going across the hills until like there was just no more hills, green hills for them to roll over because there are houses on it. So we know back then, some of these areas just so beautiful, like we'll never really see that anymore. And so it has grown a lot. And so over the pandemic, you were seeing a lot of movement, to your area.
Yes, we saw a tremendous amount of inbound from the Bay Area, specifically, which really accelerated our market as remote working became more feasible for everybody. We certainly saw a lot more people say, okay, they probably fast forwarded their plan of relocating here for the sake of their children or retirement. So that just happened more organically due to the pandemic. But we have Bay Area transplants here all the time. I jokingly tell my clients that are coming from the Bay Area, you're probably going to know someone
Yeah.
from the Bay when you get here.
Yeah. And so they're there because, okay, we have more room and we can get more space and for a much, less price point, correct?
Correct. You can get a lot more home. You can get a great school, and you don't have to send your kids to private school. Our public schools are eights, nines, and tens, which is relatively unheard of. Most people in the Bay are having to put their children in private school to get the higher level of education. And instead of getting a 15, 16, 1700 square foot home, they can get a 3,000 square foot home with a pool and something really nice for $1 million, where that gets them entry level in their market.
Great. That's awesome. That's what I was going to ask next because there may be a lot of people who are maybe not from Northern California and are kind of looking around like, hey, where can we get kind of best of everything? That's one of the things I love about Southern California here too is we're like an hour and a half from the mountains, the Big Bear, and then an hour from LA if we wanted entertainment or, ball games and, stadiums and things like that. An hour from San Diego where we're like literally bordering, Mexico, and then ocean, right there next to us. So we can go and ski or snowboard and go to the beach and surf on the same day. And a lot of people love that. However, if I talk to 100 people, I may talk to maybe one or two that actually does that. So it's just like an
Right.
imaginary thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. We can head up to Sierra at Tahoe in an hour. So you can have a half day, on the mountain and then a half work day. It's really great.
Yeah,
So
beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about real estate because that's the business that we're in, and you have a long history, with this business. And so, take me back a little bit, about like what sparked you this, down this path, and it's been a life. I know you very well, so it's been like a lifelong, love of doing real estate and helping people. But there has to be some sort of spark and beginning. So take us back a little bit.
yeah, I'm going to take you quite a ways back. So this is my 19th year in the business. And so what sparked me and got me really interested in getting into real estate was um, getting pregnant with our third daughter. And we lived in a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,000 square foot home, which obviously a family of five, that is really a tight fit for us. So we realized we needed one more room, and we sought out the help of one of our good friends who is still a dear, dear friend of ours, but he was brand new in the business, and we're all new at some point. So in saying that, there's a lot of grace, but it was a really challenging experience because we had only bought one home. We'd never sold a home, and we really had very little experience in buying or selling in our very early 20s. And so that was kind of the catalyst because it forced me to get more involved in the process. We found our own home, and I just felt lost in the process essentially. And I just felt like there has to be a better way to to do this, to sell homes, but I also kind of got bit by the real estate bug. And so, shortly after Chloe, my youngest, was old enough, I got my real estate license at the end of 2004. So I jumped into the market in '05 and experienced a lot of different markets since then. So that's really what got me started in real estate, was the fact that we had to sell and buy a home and we had very little guidance. So
I have a lot of respect for people who started their business, around that time, whether it's the run up, oh 03, oh 04, oh 05, oh 06, oh 07, like, hey, the party's not going to stop, and then all of a sudden, somebody pulls the cord, right? And I had to go through that and then continue, working in real estate. How was that for you in those, a handful of years, especially being in the business less than 5 years, right?
yeah, so a couple things. One, all I knew with regard to the market was that it changed overnight. It really felt like one minute the housing market was on fire, and then the next it was like, oh, it's really quiet. It's very different. And so, because I didn't know any different, all I knew was how to pivot and adjust. So, this is where the market was, this is where the market's going. And just kind of, I think, innately knowing, don't listen to the talk at the office or the water cooler talk. Like, you can buy into whatever conversation is happening. It was a really challenging time for people in real estate, having really hard conversations at someone's kitchen table. There was a lot of heartache, and it was really, really hard. But it taught me a lot of it really just opened my eyes to the situation around us, and to really be a student of the market. So, in order to best help our clients, like, you have to have a deep understanding of what's happening in the market, whatever the market's doing, and the market's always changing. It's never the same. So, even when it feels neutral, it's still changing.
Yeah, and a lot of us who are in this business, we're very empathetic because we want to help. We want to get from people from point A to point B, and a lot of times they don't know what their point B looks like. If they're in underwater or something like that. I mean, I remember that time. I wasn't in real estate at that time, but just a lot of people, had issues. They don't know what to do next, and they had to kind of bail out. And people literally just abandoned their homes because it was more expensive to have it than not have it and just walk away. And so it's a really, really difficult time. And same thing like you, getting into the business too. I was just reflecting on what you said, like, oh, I got bit because I went through my own experience, and I thought that there should be a better way of buying and selling real estate, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it better, and similarly with me, albeit a little later in life, is that I worked in tech, and then when I came in, I'm like, oh my God, the tech in the real estate was a mess. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is how you do it? Like, no way, and so same kind of
It's
thing. How
evolved a
can
lot in the almost 20 years. What we used to do and what
Yeah,
we do
yeah.
now is like night and day. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's gotten better, and I think a lot of credit to social media, because it allow real estate agents to see what other people are doing and then be able to learn from it and do better. Where
Mhm.
prior to that, like, if you didn't have a big, inner circle of people, of agents that you were engaging with, like, you were out. You were left by yourself to try to figure out, how to set up processes and systems, which we both just love so much, because that's how we can leverage, our time, our team, and our business growth and revenue. So you mentioned you were bit by the real estate bug. What was that feeling like? I know a lot of people out there right now are also talking to me, like, they have some interest. They may have watched some shows. They may have asked ChatGPT what it's like to do real estate. That they have something there, but they don't really know. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it was really just the feeling of not feeling supported and not having someone who could help me understand what was going to happen, right? What did any of the contract mean? I just felt like we were floundering, and trusting the guidance of someone who didn't really know much more than we did, which was almost nothing. And so I just felt like, at the end of the day, I didn't want someone to feel the way I felt selling our home or buying our home. And so I just thought, you know, I just found a passion in it. It just spoke to me um, in a way that I thought, well, this would really work for me with my children being younger. It would give me the flexibility to go pick my kids up and do the things, and that is somewhat of a truth and a fallacy at the same time. Leo, you and I know this, right? There were definitely times where I missed opportunities to be with my children because I had to show homes, but then there was also a lot of times that I was able to take advantage of being at their soccer games or whatever, because you make your own schedule. So it allowed me flexibility and freedom, and a ceilingless income.
Yeah, and that's a really, really great point, because a lot of people get into the business, they're like, I want more time, I want more freedom to myself, but they don't realize that when you take on a client, you have obligations, right? They expect these things from you and you have to show up. And when you start having multiple clients, you have to show up, show up, show up, show up. And now, if you've taken care of them and you had a really streamlined process, again, back to the systems and processes, then you can leverage your time better. Being able to batch your appointments so that they're done in an afternoon, so that you're not like driving one place and go back and drive again the next day and that kind of thing. It goes a long ways, but we don't all get into business knowing how to do that, and we kind of just learn by doing. So you're absolutely right, and so it is a fallacy, like coming in if you're not organized, then you are not going to have the time you wanted to do the things that you want to do, because it'll be gobbled up by your disorganization, which unfortunately I see a lot of agents do, especially the ones that are, kind of been around a bit, but they didn't get the right coaching or education. And so they just kind of try to do it themselves, but not have any outside input like, hey, if you did this and this, you can save 2 hours. So we do our best. Like I'm always, if I'm talking to agents, I always like share with like, oh, so you don't have time, why is that? Oh, okay, I did this thing, maybe it'll work for you.
Right, right. And time blocking is, if you're not time blocking, you're wasting a lot of time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds counterintuitive. Again, like if I block it, then I'm like, locked in or something like that. And but it's really the opposite. Organization creates freedom for you.
Yes, it does.
So as well as having your own business and running your own business can create freedom for you if you are organized and doing the right things. So you got bit by the real estate bug, and so the first, we talked a little bit about, the downturn, and we're kind of going through a bit of a downturn here. Although I don't think it's quite nearly, as bad, but it is bad for a lot of people. That's just make sure that we call that out, because it's the truth. There's, a third or even less of the inventory and available homes that are going up for sale, and so there's less for people to buy from, and then it just kind of feeds upon itself. There's not enough. We have only about a month, maybe at the most a month and a half worth of inventory. Where we
Right.
normally have anywhere from 3 to 6, right? And so it's put a crunch on people. And so, are you seeing kind of the same thing in your area?
Yeah, we've seen quite a few kind of waves and shifts throughout the market in our area specifically. So we slowed down pretty dramatically, kind of the summer of 2022, a little reminiscent of the summer of 2005, right? One day it was moving along, and then the next day, the market kind of just went really quiet, and that's was a direct result of the interest rates doubling in the matter of months. But what we're seeing now, so we had a quite a lull in the marketplace through fall winter, which to some degree is cyclical for the real estate market. Like you can predict without much risk kind of where the market cycle is going to come just based on the seasonality of the market. But we're seeing a couple things right now. You pretty much were spot on, Leo, with we don't have enough inventory to support the demand that's still there despite the higher interest rates. But we're also, really just seeing the spring activity coming back into the marketplace, but more flexibility for some buyers still with repairs and things of that nature that didn't exist in the pandemic market. So we've kind of shifted into a more neutral, normal market from that overly accelerated space we were in, but we're starting to see multiple offers come back into our marketplace. I was actually just talking to an agent in Austin, and they seem to be in a position where we were already at, because their market continued to accelerate while we were decelerating. And now they're kind of in that shifting, decelerating market. So we kind of went from on fire to decelerating to very quiet and still, and now we're picking up more momentum and steam for the spring market, which is to be expected this time of year. So I don't think that we're going to have a rock and roll sort of year. I think there's still a lot of opportunities, but it's still a very challenging market right now for some people, and pricing, as you know, is really critical.
Yeah, that's the key word, right, for everybody out there, is that there's a lot of opportunities, but if you kind of just wrote yourself off, then you're not going to capture any. And you can wait, and it's totally fine to wait, but there's no guarantees. Things are going to go down, and if anything was going to kind of drop in price, it already kind of has because of the higher interest rates. But I think we're kind of seeing the same thing. The one takeaway I have for that is that things changes very quickly, so you got to stay on top with your real estate agent and like, hey, so what's been happening in the last, say, 3 months. We used to have this thing where it's like a 12 months movement from year to year. Now it seems like it changes per quarter, right? So if you're not on top of it, by the time you're ready to do something, you may already be too late and miss your opportunity or your window or your buy box, meaning like, I want the interest rates to be this and I want this kind of pricing. You could kind of miss out and then kind of would shift into the next gear.
Right. Correct. It's very fluid right now. So what happened last month is not happening this month, and what's happening this month probably will be different, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's kind of the flow that we're in right now.
Yeah. So I want to segue a little bit here. You and I were talking about just kind of our overall experience. You have many more years than I have in the business and have much more wisdom to share with everyone, which is why I so much wanted you to come on. But you went through a period, I mean, and I think, a good portion of people go through this is they go into business, they can see that there's more work than they can handle themselves. So they take on, other partnerships and things like that, and try to kind of see if they can do more business in shorter amount of time, but working with other people to try to see if they can, kind of team up, if you will. You went in through something like that really made a big impact in how you went from kind of an individual to sort of a partnership, and then coming out of it to like, hey, this is what I learned. Can you share that story with us?
Yes, absolutely. So in 2008, obviously, I had three young children. I ended up getting into doing some research, but I've learned at this point in my life, not enough, but you always are learning. Got into a partnership with a couple agents, and we created a team back in 2008 before teams were like the thing to be. And we had that team for 8 years. And I learned a lot in that. And the reason that I went into that team was for time leverage, more than anything. I probably produced 70 to 75% of the business for the team, but it afforded me time with my children. It allowed me to spend time at the soccer game or take a vacation, and that freedom was worth it for me at the time. But as time went on, the relationship just we didn't see eye to eye, and it was getting to the point of being more or less a toxic space. And I decided that I either needed to get out of the business entirely or change my situation. And it was really the hardest thing I've done in my business to this day. It really felt like a separation and a divorce, because essentially it kind of was. And so, 12 ish, 13 years in the business, I had to then kind of rebuild my business almost from the ground up, having experience, under my belt and some of my database left intact, but really kind of starting over and saying, what do I want the rest of my business to look like? And having left a space, I took what I've learned. And then, as I like to say, I just fell forward. Like I just fail forward over and over again. And I tend to learn more from failing than I do from my successes, because when you succeed, you don't always acknowledge like that you're kicking ass, right? You just see when you're like, oh, that didn't work. Pivot, adjust. How do I fix that? But, if you don't see that failure in a positive way, or how can I not do that again, then I think you're going to continue to repeat that pattern. So for me, the biggest learning was, okay, I need to rebuild from the ground up. And then how do I want to see my business look, and how do I want to take care of my clients going forward? Because the way it was happening, just it was not fulfilling my heart, and I just knew I needed to change something. So in the beginning of 2017, I completely rebuilt my business from the ground up.
Yeah, and for there's some partnerships that work, and then have to be the right fit and stuff like that. Could you kind of expand a little bit, like what didn't exactly work, and then what was your vision, after that? Because you had to have your own vision of like, okay, how do I go on from here, calling my own shots from there.
Yeah, so I'm a great team player, but I also don't like to micromanage. I like to know that whatever you say you're going to do, Leo, like you've got it, and I can let go of those reins. And then I also need to know that we're in alignment, right, with our values and how we want to treat people going forward. And there just became this misalignment, and energies within the team that, like I said, again, were toxic, and it just didn't feel good to be in that environment. And so it didn't feel like a positive place for me to continue to work. I generally tend to be a really positive, upbeat human being. We all have our moments. But when you take the joy out of what you do, then it stops being fun, right? I love to have a great time selling real estate and helping my clients. But if you are not in alignment with your business partner, then I don't see, something had to give, right? And I stayed longer than I should have, because I knew, um, financially I was helping my partner. They were in a rough patch. And so it just got to the point where I just couldn't do that anymore. And so what I've learned is I needed to do more due diligence and deeper investigation into anyone else that I was going to bring into my world from that moment forward. So that was a huge learning lesson for me, was just because we get along doesn't necessarily make us great business partners or working partners. And then I
Yeah.
also realized there could only be one boss, and it probably should be me.
Well, the joyful aspect I respect, very much, because that's how I see you, and anything other than that, it's really difficult to get anything done. We know that a joyful, a fun task for, it may be fun for one person and may not be fun for another, but then
Right.
working personalities. Some people are really joyful when they go out with their friends and they'll have a blast. But then when they're working, they're really not that joyful. Like they're like, um, not that they're not focused or anything like that, but they're focused in a way that is not joyful and cohesive to work together with. They may be like good people that do really really good work when they're by themselves, and that's just not who you are, and it's not who I am either. And a lot of times that causes issues because it's not fun. I don't want to do it with you, kind of a thing,
Right.
right? And so we have to all follow our energy, follow our path there, because that's where the greatest leverage is going to come from. If you worked one day where you were kind of grinding away and it's not fun, like you literally are depleted for the rest of the week. Where if you had a joyful day of doing something that you enjoy doing, like that fuels you for the rest of the week. Like it's such a flip flop. Like it could go like, fall one way or the other. And
Absolutely.
I
You can
think
do
that
twice
doesn't,
as much work if you're joyful and you love what you do, versus if it's draining to you, you'll do two times
yeah,
less the amount of
yeah,
work. So
that's right.
it's just, you know,
That's
That's
right.
how I
You'll
see it.
never outcompete someone who's having the most fun at something that they're doing.
100%.
So, so now, fast forward here to today, since 2017, can you give us kind of what you have in place, the structure, and the people that you have in place, and give us some kind of the results till now? Like, I know you have many more years to come.
Yeah, I do see retirement in my future at some point, but
We're all working on that. We're all working hard on that, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. When are you gonna
yeah,
retire?
exactly. So really, I rebuilt my team based on support. I really looked at where am I really strong, and then where is it naturally not my gift, and then I hired for those aspects. There's components of real estate that I don't enjoy. And no one enjoys every single aspect of real estate. There's a lot of paperwork and different things. And I'm best being face to face with you, my client, and really having that framework and foundation for how business works and flows, and then the team surrounding me to support me. So I built a support system and a support team and systems and processes, like you know, Leo. So I have two admin, and I currently also have a virtual assistant. And then I brought in a showing specialist in 2020, I believe. And then I recently brought her on as a member of our team. So it took me a really long time to actually bring another agent into the fold after the team experience, just because personally I wasn't ready and I didn't really want to be responsible for anyone else. But I mentored Rochelle, who's on my team, for a couple years as my showing specialist. And it just felt like a very good, organic, cohesive fit. And so that is essentially now the structure of my team.
Yeah, I kind of I love that your clarity around who exactly you want to work with, that clarity and that specific type of person that you want, and then you also give the time to kind of see how they work, even though you can see that that may be could be a good working relationship, but then you also give them the time to say like, hey, let's try this, let's give it a shot, and then you kind of evaluate, hey, is this working, before you actually make a full commitment on like, okay, I can see it's working great, it's great for you, it's great for me, we're doing great business, I would like to offer you a position at that point, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I jokingly say my interview process, you'd think you were like trying to, work for the president of the United States. Like there's so many phases of the interview process that once you're in my world, you really, you kind of have the keys to the kingdom. And I'm a pretty loyal, long-term person. And I'm very open when it comes to the conversations we have in the team, and we all just really feel like a family and culture and being a great fit, and also wanting to care and support our clients in the same way and high level that I want my clients to feel. That's really important to me. So it really has to be the right fit. And so that, again, is a learning from the prior team. So,
Yeah, that's so good. That's super good. I think a lot of people go into it like, well, I'm just gonna hire someone. They're gonna do all these things for me. It's gonna be great, but they forget about the relationship part, right? If like, why should that person work for you? And a lot of times as leaders, we have to work for them. Like we have to enable, empower them, to do stuff, and then we kind of a lot of times get in the way too. And so if we don't go through that process where the energy and the energy that drives the work is correct, then you have friction, and then people just like leave, and then you have to go and start over again, and that's very hard. Like the turnover is extremely hard on people.
yes, and I've been very fortunate. So Erin has been with me really since 2017. And then I had another admin that was with me for about 3.5 years, and she only left because her husband was retiring, and I helped them sell their home. And their replacement has been with me a year. So I feel really fortunate. And I always tell the girls on my team is I can't do what I do without you, and vice versa. So there's never a me, it's always a we. So I can't do and support my clients and do the job that I do without my team. They support me, and I in turn
Yeah.
support them. So
Yeah, I love that so much because we forget and we go out looking for team members or operational, people that work in our team. And some of our best candidates are our clients. you know, just because you loved working with them, they loved working with you, they had a great experience. They're like, hey, what if I could do some of that stuff? And do you need help?
Yes, I've yet to hire a client, but maybe that'll happen for me.
Yeah. So, aside from running your family, which you are becoming empty nester, what are other things that you're passionate about in your life?
I'm mostly passionate about, well, my family, spending as much time with them as I can. I'm fortunate that my girls, for the most part, live close by. My parents live close by. My husband's parents live close by. And for me personally, just being outside in nature is probably one of the most grounding things for me personally that helps me recenter and gives me the ability to kind of decompress from the world, from real estate, and reconnect and kind of listen to myself, because your mind is always going unless you consciously kind of slow it down, and listen.
Yeah, it's not a strange thing, like just because you're outside in nature that you think better and that you're like you're part of this world, where as opposed if you're alone in a room or something like that, like that just doesn't work, at all. I know I'm a big fan of it. You and I have that in common. I'm out, hiking every single morning, and especially, I have my dog, and so she always reminds me like, hey, we got to go outside.
Right, right. Yes, it reminds you also that it's not just you and your world, right? There's so much more around you, and it reminds you there's so much more that you could be doing or giving back. Um, and really, we're just a small, you know, fraction and blip on the
That's
radar
right.
of the world. Yeah,
Right. Of the planet, of our country, of our,
right.
like our solar system, our universe.
Exactly. Well, when you're dealing with something and you're like, oh, this is the worst thing, or I'm in a really hard place, or, life feels really hard because sometimes it just does. Sometimes you're dealt, some cards that, are challenging. But then you can kind of set yourself free essentially and realize like this too shall pass, right? Like there's something greater and bigger than me. And, you know, it's just an easier, it's my way of kind of resetting myself every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, all right. Well, you've shared so much with us. I know everybody's going to get a lot, out of this, from, the geographic location they may consider from a real estate perspective, how we run our teams, and, and just kind of center ourselves, through nature. But you have a quote that you like to share with the world today, and I'd love to hear it and also know what that, means to you.
Yeah. So this is actually also a little flag on the front of our garden because we also like to garden. But the quote is, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind," because you can choose to be whatever you want. You can be successful. You can be a jerk. You can be whatever and however you choose to be. So if you can choose that, why wouldn't you choose to be kind to someone else? So to me, you always have a choice and you can always choose again. Whatever happened 10 minutes ago doesn't have to keep happening emotionally, mentally to you. You can always choose a different frequency. And if you can choose the frequency of kindness, your world changes and the people around you change because your ability to put goodness out into the world, you know, is paramount. So that's my favorite quote. It's on the back of my phone.
Just to
You
prove
can see
it.
it's been around for a while.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's how I like to try and look through the lens of my life. Is if you could be anything, you should be kind.
Yeah, I love it so much. I used to have someone, a close friend of mine, when I do stuff, he would remind me, like, don't just do something. like you're a human being, not a human doing, right?
Right.
So
I love
just
that.
so do the being, and the kindness of the being, propels you to be more cohesive with yourself and with the world. So I just can't tell you how much I love that, and every time I see you, I think of that. You can be anything, you just be kind, just be kind,
Yes.
and
And in real
everything.
estate, be kind to your fellow agent. Like it goes a long way. It doesn't really matter how you're applying that, but when you're kind to someone else, it will trickle back to you much
Yeah.
faster than you're aware.
Yeah, totally. We're all in the same world, whether they're agents or clients or just average normal people. They're still just people, and so be kind to agents. We forget like, oh, my prospect, my clients, my client. Then like there's a third of the party that's involved. Yeah, agent, clients, right? So
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. You have so much more to offer, but I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you for being on. And I just appreciate you so much, as a friend, but also as a fellow agent and team leader, and so much to gain from you. Anyone out there that's watching or listening, if you have any questions about any of the things that we mentioned, please reach out to her. If you want to know anything El Dorado Hills area, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous area, reach out to her. I have all of her social media stuff, down here in the comments. And if you want to see more podcasts like this, you can go to the Wisdom Club podcast on all the podcast channels. And we will say bye for now. Thank you, Andrea. And we will hopefully chat with you again soon.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for having me. It was such a great
Okay,
conversation today.
thanks.
Bye.